Good morning to you and everybody out there. It is 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, and you know what that means. It is time for her money and investing show. And I'm so glad that you guys keep coming back week after week after week. It's been kind of like a tiring week this week. I cannot lie. Yeah. We have something going on. Yeah, we do. We have something going on called back to school thoughts. Yeah, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what we as moms are going through with this whole back to school thing. If you are a young professional and don't have kids yet, you don't know what this stress is. The stress is real. It is. It is. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I'm Jessica Perrone, her financial IQ founder, and I come to you guys every Thursday morning so that you can start practicing the language of money and investing. So just a little bit about me. I am the mom of 3 teens. I was in finance for 16 years, and now I'm on a mission to teach women of all ages, all backgrounds, how to speak the language of money, finance, and investing. So in addition to this weekly show, I also do all sorts of other things. You'll find me on interviews, on radio shows. You'll find me doing workshops. And you'll also find my classes. And my fall classes are now posted at herfiniq.com. So if you wanted to go back to school when the kids go back to school, I would love to see you in the classes. They range from personal finance, getting your financial ducks in a row so that you can start investing, to the basics of investing, to the basics of stocks, ETFs, etc. The whole journey is listed on my website, so you can get an idea of where your journey can go outside of the show, right? So we are just going to giddy up here. There's a lot of stuff I want to get through, but I also have the kids home today, and I hear some construction going on next door. Oh no, those work from home issues, absolutely. So I'm just going to go ahead and giddy up and get through all the stuff that I want to talk about today. But what I'd love for you to do right now is grab that identifying investment sheet, because we're going to talk about some back to school concepts. And I definitely want you to start writing down names if you start thinking like, oh yeah, I noticed this trend, or yeah, this is a company that I'm interested in investigating a little bit more, right? Because as we talk about the identifying investment method, we're looking to our everyday lives to find things that we want to invest in, things that we believe in. And then what we do is we grow our sheet, right? And we investigate and we learn about the companies, and we invest in companies that we believe in. So this is all part of the identifying investment method, and you will learn more about that in my classes as well. And as you join me for the chat, please say hi in the chat and say where you're from, how your day's going. And the quiz of the day today, the question of the day today is, how do you feel about back to school shopping? Okay. And I think that my biggest question for everybody is, we're talking a lot about budgeting, right? We're talking about getting our financial ducks in a row so that we can start investing, right? So this is a big concept that we talk about here at HerFinIQ. And when we're talking about budgeting, right, we talk about needs versus wants, okay? So this is my question for you guys coming into, hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. So this is my question for all you moms that are going back to school shopping. Is back to school shopping a need or a want? Okay, I'm gonna put this one more time. Is back to school shopping a need or a want? And I'm actually going to go through some of my logic on this a little bit later. But Deloitte actually came up with a really interesting survey here. And I started sort of like thinking about this, the whole back to school shopping thing, because I'm a mom, right? And I'm going back to school shopping with my kids, but I'm also hearing a lot about back to school shopping in financial media as well. And I'm hearing that a lot of the analysts are saying that the pent up demand for back to school shopping is very similar to the pent-up demand that we saw for the travel industry and the service industry, et cetera, right? And what's really interesting is Deloitte put out a 2022 back to school survey as well. And guess what? There were some interesting things that came up in the study that I noticed. And so the first one is that the market size year over year for back to school shopping is actually going to be up year over year. It's going to be up almost 6%. And that is going to be in a spend of $34.4 billion. It's a huge industry, right? And they even said that back to school shopping is only behind the holidays shopping, Christmas shopping for parents. Yes, it is such a huge industry. So what they are also seeing is that the spend per child in the household is up 8% to $661 a child. Yes, $661, up 8%. So some of the top reasons for spending. So when we're thinking about this, we're like, oh, it's such a huge industry. Yes, there's going to be increase in spending. But one item that came out of the report that kind of piqued my interest was that parents were saying something of this nature. One of the top reasons for spending more was that parents are generally finding that the prices are higher compared to last year. So it might not be that they're buying more, but they have to spend more on the products that they would normally buy. But another aspect here that was really interesting to me was clothes versus supplies. Okay, so they did a breakdown of what parents actually are spending on there, and they're saying that so Deloitte's saying that 18% market growth for clothing and accessories, right? The kids are still growing, right? The kids are still growing. They still need new clothes. Where year over year growth for school supplies was only 7%. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, what we are seeing in our everyday lives as parents that kind of echo what we're seeing by the pros and analysts putting together these fancy research reports as well. So two more statistics here really surprised me. The first one was that 29% of parents prefer to buy used or refurbished products than brand new ones for their children. I kind of like chuckled when I saw the statistic because I was just thinking about used pencils like this big, like giving them to my kids. That's something I would totally do. Yes. But I got that little visual there. But all seriousness, yes, kids go through clothes like little kids, and my teens, they just want to look cool. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about strategies with that and the social and psychological implications of back to school shopping for girls, right? But with the younger ones, they go through clothes so fast and they just wear through it. They play so hard through them. It kind of makes sense, and I would say this, especially with clothes, not so much with shoes, like when I'm thinking about this. But I could definitely see how used could be the way to go for clothes, especially for little kids. Okay, so the other aspect of this research report was where people are doing their purchasing. So 49% are using mass merchant stores. And when they talk about mass merchant stores, they're talking about the Targets and the Walmarts of the world. And then 16% are online only stores, 5% department stores, 4% specialty clothing stores, and 4% dollar stores. Okay, so this is what the fancy pants at Deloitte are saying, but it is already something that you guys know as the consumer and parents of the students, right? So this is what I'm talking about when you're looking around you and you're identifying your own trends in your everyday life. And so what I'd like to do now is sort of go through my logic process of how I look through these things. So and of course, this is my point of view from a mom of 3 older teens, right? I have a 8th grader, I have a sophomore, and I have a senior. So, this is not really looking into like the trends for like the younger kids, the elementary school kids that might need, physical supplies, that might need physical books a little bit more than the older kids, which are still have a lot of like your Google Classroom and whatnot. They have a lot of their resources online and maybe wouldn't need so many of those tangible supplies. And that also doesn't include college students, students that are going to college that might have to decorate their dorms, etc., their apartments. So these are all things that you might see as parents, trends you might see of parents with kids in those age groups. So this is what I'm seeing with kids in the teens. So late middle school, high school kids. So the first item that I noticed was that I was at Target. I was at Target with my youngest daughter, and she is quite the little fashionista. And she is so picky about her clothes. She really is. And she knows which brands fit her, and those are the brands that she wants. And let me tell you, I do not do any shopping without her because she will hate it. She will 100% hate it. And that is 13. That's the age of a 13-year-old. Yes, I'm in the thick of it with my teenagers, absolutely. But what was really there were 3 things that were really surprising about this visit. The first one was that Halloween stuff is already starting to come out, and it is the end of July. So that was my first surprise. The second surprise was that my teen daughter actually says that the Target clothes weren't terrible. No joke. She's like going through it. She's like, oh, this is kind of cute. Oh, this isn't terrible. Oh, and she literally said that the other brands that she shops better watch out. No joke. She really did say that. So Target must be doing something right to attract my really fussy 13-year-old when it comes to fashion and clothes. So they must be doing something right. And guess what? I'm looking at the price tags and I'm saying, ooh, this is something that I can afford. This is affordable. And so whereas I might have said, you don't need anything more. I might be like, you know what? I'm here. Why don't you go ahead and throw that t-shirt into the cart, right? So that was a trend that I noticed with my daughter. And so think about that when you're going into your day to day, where are you shopping for the back to school things? What products are hot, right? What kind of clothes are they interested in? What kind of shoes are they interested, et cetera? These are all ways that you can kind of see these trends and start thinking about, what the next big thing is going to be, or where other monies are going to, because frequently when you see a trend for yourself, it's happening for other women out there as well, other parents out there as well. So another trend that I'm noticing, and in the Deloitte research report, they actually said that the electronics, right? Those items that we had to buy during COVID because we were remote, and the migration of a lot of learning online, there was a lot of laptops that were bought, etc. Now, this year in my household, the other thing that my kids, actually the number one thing that my kids want for school is Airpods. They want their Airpods because it's so important to be able to listen to things that are going on their laptops, right? Whether it's music, whether it's class assignments, whether it's YouTube videos, that is the one thing that they are really saying. So when we think of that, I'm like, okay, I'm putting a mental check next to Apple, right? APL, because this is something that they are interested in. So, there's a lot of laptops were bought, but you know what? There may be refreshers on the accessories that go with them as well. The other trend that I noticed with my back to school shopping was the summer reading books. And the summer reading books, I bought all the summer reading books in actual physical form. And I did this because I didn't want them to go into virtual world, right? I didn't want them to go into virtual world on their laptops or their iPhones. I wanted them to be focused on their summer reading. And just thinking about where I got these books, I got them on Amazon, right? So, okay, check. I got Amazon. We're talking about Apple. We're talking about Target. Okay. So then the other trend that I noticed with myself is that I try not to go back to school shopping, period. I did go to Target and I did see, the clothes, and I did see all the back to school supplies. But like Jennifer says here in the chat, she goes, "Oh my gosh, it's a want, but my kids wholeheartedly believe it's a need." Yes, I know, right? It's like this whole peer thing, right? They need to have that new backpack. They need to have those new supplies. They need to have those new outfits. But what I started doing with my kids is I won't let them do clothes school shopping until the school year starts. Because what I found was that the stuff that I bought them before school started was not what was in style once school started. And I would be like, "I bought you all this stuff preschool." And they're like, "No, Mom, but they're not cool anymore." And I just said, I got fed up with it. I'm like, I'm not buying any clothes before the school year starts. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to spend the money. I'm going to wait until the school starts. And then I will go and I will buy different things. And also, like, when it comes to like buying stuff in August for fall in school, you're really not buying like fall stuff in August. Is anyone like really thinking about how cold it's going to be, in December and November? No, you're not. However, and I will say that there is one item that I will buy for my kids every year. Absolutely, positively, hands down, and that is shoes. Shoes get worn out. They absolutely get worn out. So I definitely am thinking about my DSW, which is designer brands, and that's DBI. The other item that I always get a lot of is Post-it notes and Scotch tape. Anyone else like eat through Post-it notes? I think that Post-it notes go where the socks have gone, right? Absolutely. I think that the Post-it notes went where the socks went because I never can have enough Post-it notes, Sharpies. Oh, Sharpies too. Oh, I didn't even think about Sharpies. I'm going to have to do research on the Sharpies, but I know Amazon has their own Sharpie brand. I bought those recently. So maybe we'll just add Amazon back to the list again as a place where you can get Sharpies and also the generic brand. Okay, so the last item here that I noticed with my back to school shopping kind of kick that I'm going on here is that CVS. Okay, CVS was one of those places that historically had great back to school supplies. But this year, I noticed when I went to the pharmacy, I did not see as much back to school supplies at CVS. I saw a huge selection at Target, but not so much at CVS. And that's the CVS near me. Tell me what you are seeing at the CVS near you. Are you seeing those like huge displays of back to school items? Or has it decreased in size? Maybe they are seeing a trend. Maybe they're seeing a trend that there is less expenditures on back to school. Maybe, let me know what you're seeing. And if you want to chime into the chat about what you are seeing when it comes to back to school. So some of the questions I want you to be asking yourself is what stores are you going to? What are you buying? What are you not buying this year? And, like I said, as your age group of kids, right? What do you notice? What do you notice with your younger kids versus your older kids, right? What are those trends that you are noticing? So that is what I've been thinking about when it comes to back to school shopping. And I would like to say personally, after going through this, that the back to school shopping, some of it can be needs. So for example, you need shoes, right? And you do need clothes. And I will say that the kids definitely do grow up, right? They do grow up and they do need clothes occasionally, right? But do they need the best and the biggest? Do they need brand new everything? No, sometimes that can just be a want. And Jennifer, you definitely hit it on the head with your comment in there. Thank you so much for chiming in. I really super appreciate it. So everybody has been counting on the Fed interest rate increases. And yesterday we had a 75 basis point increase for the second straight month. And the markets rallied. Like, who else was confused about that? I had some people chime in saying, why did the markets rally yesterday? What happened? Well, there's a couple things that I was seeing yesterday that could definitely, and things I've been seeing in the financial media as well. But one of the big things was that we had some not bad earnings reports out of some of the big tech companies, which helped rally the technology sector. And the other item was that there was talk, and a lot of the analysis on Fed speak is, changes to their speeches, what they are saying now compared to what they said before. And what the financial news is talking about right now is the pivot in Powell's speech. So there was just this one little part. Now, he did mention that there may be another aggressive increase, right? There might be, but they could potentially be slowing the pace of increases at some point. So that was point one, right? So actually point two. So we had tech earnings, we had this, that there's a pivot, potentially a pivot in the Fed speak. And then the third one was that Powell was rejecting that the US economy is in a recession. And that was also why the stock market was rallying. So, but what you and I see in everyday life is what? A lot of you guys are worried, right? A lot of you guys are worried about a recession. So, and we are also seeing, layoffs. We're seeing a lot of layoffs come down the pipeline, especially from the tech companies whose stock prices have been hit exceptionally hard. And, as you think about it, with the sell-off in the market, your wealth as a person, how wealthy you are feeling, with your retirement accounts, your 401k, your investing accounts, right? You might not feel as wealthy with the stock market sell-offs. So you might in turn start saying, I'm not spending so much. And what's interesting is also this week on financial radio, what I heard about was that the Hampton rental prices are getting a hit. Oh, those poor rentals out there. But anyhow, what they were saying is that the hit to people's wealth from the stock market sell-off is potentially affecting the luxury rentals out there as well. So we'll see how that goes and how that affects the consumer. But for right now, it seems like there is definitely different sectors are being hit different ways. And that's what we were looking at. And that's what we all feel as the consumer. So other things that move stock prices are legislation. Okay. And yesterday we actually had two breakthroughs. We had two breakthroughs, one in green solar and solar energy, and the other in chips. So the first one was that we have a potential breakthrough. The U.S. Senator Manchin and Majority Leader Schumer have struck a deal on a tax, energy, climate bill. And this is really interesting because it's breaking a deadlock on the Democrats' long-sought legislation to enact major parts of Biden's agenda. And the plan would generate an estimated $739 billion in revenue, spend $433 billion, and reduce deficits by $300 billion over the decade. And so and then the other item that this is going to do is it's going to create $52 billion in grants and incentives as well. Oh, that's actually for the semiconductors. But what we're seeing here, the solar stocks were started to trade up off of that. And then some other energy names too were trading up, and also ETFs we saw increase as well. So this is something else that you want to think about when you're looking at names. Sometimes it's not about the actual revenue, right, that the company is earning on a quarterly basis in their earnings reports. Sometimes it has to do with the legislation that is going to create benefits for these companies in the future as well. And so we saw that as well with the CHIP bill. So the US Senate passed legislation that includes $52 billion in grants and incentives for domestic semiconductor manufacturing, an industry that has steadily lost ground to foreign competitors in recent years. So with that said, what we were seeing is companies like NVIDIA, that ticker is NVDA, Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, and they all started to rally this morning. And again, when you are thinking about these types of headlines and these legislations, if you are not familiar with the individual companies, if you are not familiar with who the leaders are, it's always interesting to research the ETFs. And so, for example, there are semiconductor ETFs, and there are solar, there's green energy ETFs, and these are all ways to take advantage when you hear legislation coming down the pipeline and you're like, okay, you know what? I don't know who the companies are. I don't know who the players are, but you know what? I really like this company. I really want to promote green companies, solar investing, and I want to put my money where my mouth is, right? Or you know what? Chips are in everything. They are in my microwave. They're in my car. They're in my phone. You know, this is something that I feel that I really want to be a part of. Well, if you don't know the individual companies, right, you can always look to the ETF to try to get involved. So what I'd love to do is close with my last two favorite things. The one is the headline of the day, and then we move on to the quote of the day. The headline of the day is out of Bloomberg today, and New York City may be the first US city to charge motorists an extra fee for entering its most congested areas. If the plan takes into effect, drivers entering Manhattan below 60th Street may generate an additional $1 billion a year for the MTA. And you guys thought driving through the Holland Tunnel, right, was expensive. Well, not only are you going to get pinged on that tunnel, you are also going to get pinged on driving downtown. How do you think that's going to affect Uber drivers in downtown? I just thought of that. Again, now you see how that that rabbit hole goes on in Jessica's head. So, quote of the day, I love to leave you guys with inspiration. So today's quote of the day is, don't be afraid, be focused, be determined, be hopeful, be empowered. That's from Michelle Obama. Let me repeat it one more time. It's, don't be afraid, be focused, be determined, be hopeful, be empowered. And that is my wish for you, to not be afraid of the journey in growing your wealth. In that journey, may you be focused, determined in achieving your goals, whatever that is. Together, we women can be hopeful and empowered in changing the status quo. And should you wish to take your money and investing journey outside this weekly show, check out my fall class schedule and, sign up for my mailing list so that you can be notified of upcoming shows, interviews, panels, workshops, and of course, the announcements for my new workbooks and self-directed classes. I'm Jessica Perrone, founder of Her Financial IQ. You've been watching the Her Investing Coffee Talk. Actually, it is now the Her Money and Investing Show. Oh my gosh, I'm still calling it by the old name. May the markets be in your favor. See ya. Bye now. Thank you so much for joining. Take care. Bye.